Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
Hello, this is Nick Pope, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network. And this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thanks for that, Nick. Right, today I've got a fantastic guest that I'm really pleased to have, and it's Jim Penniston. I think he's quite a hard person to get, and I'm really pleased that he's agreed to come on this show. But before I introduce him on, I've got a couple of call-outs to people. I've got James Warrow, London, UK, Valerie Hood, Boyle, Ireland, and Valerie Waters, Telford, Shropshire, UK. Right, now I'm going to introduce Jim Penniston, one of the main witnesses of the Rendlesham UFO incident of 1980. He's the man that walked up and touched the craft, and hopefully he's going to tell us all about that and a lot more. Hello, Jim, are you there?
I am. It's so nice to be with you, David. Finally.
Well, yes, it's fantastic to have you on the show. As I said, it's I'm actually mind blown. I'm really, I feel like I'm on a wire at the moment. But it's fantastic to have you on. And I understand. I don't think you've done any more UK shows at all, have you? Or do you intend to?
I don't. I don't really intend to do any more UK shows, but that as of right now, I think you're going to be it, David.
Oh, right. I'm very honoured, and thank you very much. This goes out right across the US and the world anyway, so
great.
So it's kind of world. I know we're based in the UK, but it goes right across anyway. So I guess the best place to start, Jim, I mean, if you don't mind, is to sort of go through kind of what happened. I know you've probably done it hundreds of times, but if you wouldn't mind, go through how you got involved in the event that happened in December 1980. From your perspective.
Okay, I was assigned a shift that night. There's a big difference between law enforcement and security. Law enforcement was working 8-hour shifts. Security was working 12. I was on security. We had went over to. I was working Woodbridge that night. I was the flight chief for security, and we went over there as normal. And then did our normal stuff, and I got a call after I got in the chow hall around 12 o'clock at night, and midnight, and I had missed the call actually, and anyway, Sergeant McCulley, he was Security 6, Security Response Team Leader, and he says, Jim, you got a call from CSC, so I went to the direct line at the chow hall, and it was Sergeant Coffey on there, the senior controller, and he says, you need to get to the East Gate immediately. I said, okay, what's the situation? He says, they'll brief you, the patrol, when you get there. And he says, go code 2, which was, with lights. And I said, okay. And so it takes about, we timed it out. It takes exactly about 4 minutes to get there from the chow hall to the East Gate. That's what I took, and I got to the East Gate, and I met with the senior patrolman, Sergeant Steffens, and I said, what's going on, bud? And he says, he pointed over to the Rendlesham Forest area, and I could see, like what appeared to be lights popping on and off, and there's a dome of light over the forest canopy, and I said, I immediately started thinking, well, it must have been an aircraft downing, because it sort of looked like a fire. And I said, did you hear it crash or see it crash? And he goes, oh, no. He says, this didn't crash, Jim. He said, it landed. I'm thinking, well, there's no way it can land in that forest. There's just trees are too close together.
Yeah, I think it's a lot denser than it is now, isn't it? I think.
They're always cropping the trees. They're always logging it. I mean, but that area was pretty dense. I don't know. Maybe those trees are 4, 5, 6 feet apart. They weren't very, very far apart. And so I'm still in my own mind trying to rationalize what Bud is saying. So I said, was it a chopper? And he goes, no. He says, it whatever it was, it landed. And I went, okay. And I think I pursued that for quite a bit with Bud trying to change his mind. And Bud was adamant. And of course, the airman with him we had to tell him to shut up like 6 times. I was trying to get briefed. He was beside himself. All right. That's okay. They're all young airmen. I don't know. I'm not going to make excuses for somebody, that's been under 2 years in the service. Anyway, so I went to the direct line at the East Gate, and law enforcement, which was already out of control, they weren't in control of the situation upon my arrival. It automatically became a security situation, and law enforcement, I said, patch me through the CSC, and as they immediately did. When I did that, this is all instantaneous, pretty much. It all happens in a period of a couple of minutes. I have, the senior controller, Sergeant Coffey. I have the comm plotter, Sergeant Dillard. I got Sergeant Chandler, the flight sergeant for Bentwaters. I have, Skip Moran, Lieutenant Skip Moran, the shift commander for us. They're all on at one time. So when I'm talking, there's other actions being done by these other individuals. Right. And one of the things that they asked me, he said, what do you think? I said, it appears to be a crash. I says, and at that point in time, I'd probably been to maybe 20 crashes. I don't know, a lot. And it just didn't appear quite like a regular aircraft crash. And but anyway, with the status of the forces agreement, the only way we could deploy off base if there was a bona fide emergency. So anyway, Sergeant Coffey gets back, and they said that they lost contact. He was in contact with the control tower, Eastern Radar, Heathrow, and they lost contact, they said, about 15 minutes ago with a bogey over Woodbridge Base. And that confirmed that there probably was an aircraft without a transponder, and it probably crashed. And so we had a bona fide emergency. Of course, Lieutenant Moran got a hold of the base commander, Colonel Conrad, through the wing command posts, and we got authorized to go off base. I was told to take 2 people with me. I wanted an NCO with me, and Sergeant Steffens, he just adamantly would not go. No, he would not go. And Sergeant McCulley, I couldn't really pull him in case it was a security situation, it was a ruse or something like that, because he would be in charge of, response at the base. I think you understand that.
Yeah.
It was really different times, with the world situation in 1980. It was just different.
Oh, sure, because it was the height of the Cold War and everything, wasn't it? And,
yeah.
I mean, did you suspect it might have been, Russians landing or something? Or?
Well, I go 100% into the fact that it was a aircraft crash, because it didn't have all the things I would see normally in that. So, I did have in the back of my mind, wonder if this is some kind of ruse or something to go ahead and divert security forces off base. And I went, oh, you never know. So, you just got to be prepared for that. And so I was going to deploy off, but the problem was we weren't going to take weapons. So pretty much there we were going to go out and get the information and report it, and pretty much if it was hostile, we would probably be expendable at that point, And but that's okay. My job was to do that, and anyway, I had the crash kit, and we have an aircraft crash kit in the back of the Security 8's vehicle. That's the one I drove, a Jeep. And I took the plotting board out, and my intention was to go out there and to set up an entry control point for first responders, medical people, fire department, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I had to plot that in for the security control.
Were the UK police informed at that point, or?
Oh, we would never do that.
No?
Not at that point, no.
Oh, I just thought, because it was on UK territory, I thought...
We didn't tell the British a lot unless we absolutely had to.
Right. Thanks for that.
No, we'd never know.
No, of course.
I mean, what happens if I went out there and I had to establish a national defense area, a U.S. national defense area? We're not going to let anybody British or no one there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I might be unsulling since you're British, but that's just the way it was.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I wasn't around at that point, so
Anyway, so I ended up with a law enforcement patrolman and a security patrolman. And so I drove on out there, and, of course, the only ones that had radios was the security patrolman or security airman, and then myself. And I wouldn't allow the law enforcement. Besides, there's some problems. The law enforcement having a radio, they had another channel. They had to switch back for. But the only radios that went out was myself and Airman Kabanzak, the security airman.
Right.
So I don't know if you've been out to Rendlesham Forest, but once they're cut, there's berms, earthen berms out there that you have to sort of drive over.
Yeah.
And I went as far as I wanted. At that time, the whole area, most of the area that I drove over had been cut. And so the existence of the tree line was pretty far back in there. Maybe, I don't know, 200 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards maybe. It was quite a ways back. And I went as far as I could, and so I thought that was a good place to set up the entry control point. And at that point in time, we were having radio difficulties, which was really not heard of there because we had repeating systems for our radios all over the twin bases. They would carry the signals, so we usually wouldn't have any problems like that. And so I told the security airman, Airman Kabanzak, that besides being the entry control point, he was going to have to maybe relay my information to security control. And he said, no problem. Also, that's how security control knew exactly where the entry control point was going to be. I plotted it. It was called into CSC, so they knew where Kabanzak was located at. And then myself and the law enforcement patrolman proceeded up to the edge of the forest. We were seeing, multicolored lights, and then all of a sudden they dissipated as we approached, and they were more a white bright type of light coming out of there, maybe a bluish tint, something like that. And then at times it could even have a yellowish tint. It was a clear night, so I don't know why that effect was happening. But I was getting more doubt about the aircraft crash as I approached. And my radio transmissions were broken. I wasn't receiving CSC, but I still transmitted my security checks saying I was okay. And with the hopes that they could pick everything up. I did later find out from Sergeant Coffey that CSC, Central Security Control, received all my radio transmissions.
Oh, yeah.
So that's new. That's in the Rendlesham Enigma book. Where we're at. We're going to be going into the forest, and as we approached into the forest, there was a bright light that emulated. It just exploded, but without sound. Okay, I was taking pictures up to that point because I had my camera because I thought it was going to be a crash scene. We have the cameras in the crash kits, by the way. That's how we have cameras.
Oh, right.
We'd also take pictures of like the airplane tail number people, those kind of people, and anybody else who's on the perimeter. We'd take pictures of them, taking pictures of us. Excuse me, I'm taking a sip of water.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think you haven't mentioned the name, but it was John Burroughs that you were out with, wasn't it? Walking up to the craft or to the area.
Yeah, he was law enforcement.
He was law enforcement. Yep.
And?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was waiting for you.
Oh. Okay. So after hitting the ground, I got up and of course there's a berm in front of me. And let's see, well, the law enforcement patrol, Burroughs, he was 25 feet back to the right of me. And I had Cabanzac, I would say, was probably 50 yards, maybe tops, where the entry control point is. Anyway, we're all in visual contact, okay?
Yeah.
And so as I approach over started going up toward the berm, I started getting physical effects. Before I got there, like static electricity on my skin, hair, clothes. Mm-hmm. There was no sound. For some reason, the air was like dead. And you couldn't hear like air or breeze through the trees, or like me walking on the forest floor, which is crunchy anyway by debris and stuff. And as I come up to the berm, I terminated. I called in CSC and I said, I'm terminating the security response option for downed aircraft. I'm initiating a helping hand situation. And that is a Air Force term for a possible hostile threat to a priority A, B, or C resource on the base.
Right.
Okay. So right at that point in time, it was no longer a recovery mode, anything. It was more of a security. It was a security situation. I had a lot going on, a lot going through my head at the time. I expelled my pictures. They were done. And these are the old photographs that you do with film and that. They never had film in the camera.
Yeah.
Because
of course you had a lot of responsibility, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm actually working. I'm doing security response option protocols, but it's hard because I'm panicking. I got a lot of stuff going on in my head, personal feelings and that, what's going on, and especially with the physical effects of it. And as I come over the berm, the light had dissipated, and what was appeared there was a triangular craft, which cannot be there because the forest is too small. The trees are too close together in a very small clearing, and so I'm thinking to myself that I'm probably not going to make it through this. One way or another, I had that feeling.
It was as bad as that, was it?
And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I figured the best thing to do is do my job, get as much information as I can, and I was making the security checks, and write down in my notebook as much as I could, and hopefully that would be enough in the event I didn't make it, at least the command element would know what happened exactly out there, and then that would help them make decisions. And so I found my movements as I come toward the triangular craft labored. It felt, the best way to describe it is like you'd walk through a pool of water, waist high or something like that. I mean, I was struggling to get through it. One of the theories I have now that we worked over and over again is probably that the sphere of influence around this craft has this distorted time or reality. I don't know where maybe it's catching up, it's out of sync, something like that.
Yeah. Was there an instance of missing time later on that you had, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, my watch was 45 minutes off. To me, it didn't. I find that out later, but to me, it could be just a bad watch. Or the fact that the static electricity, because of the electronic watch, maybe it just froze it. I don't know.
But what about everyone else's time? Did their time alter too?
No, Burroughs never wore a watch. He still doesn't.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. Kabanzak was, I don't know if he had a watch on there or not that night. I would imagine he was security. All security troops I knew had watches. But I never asked him that. But he was quite a distance away.
Anyway, so you walked up to this craft. You've taken some pictures.
Right. And so as closer I got to the craft, no longer 8 feet away, I'm 4 feet away. I felt the restrictions of movement seemed to dissipate. And they had like globular colors running through the fabric of the skin of the craft. And they were slowing down throughout the craft. And finally they just stopped. And they just sort of faded away and dissipated. So all I had was a black craft. In my description, it was like black glass, because it was also, I will tell you about, touching it and the smoothness of it. But I did some immediate things. I didn't have no measuring devices out there, so I had to use what I had. I'm 6'2", and it was sitting above the ground somehow, and I guesstimated that somewhere between 6.5 to 7.5 feet high at the dorsal area of the craft. I paced off. And my stride's pretty good. I get like 3 feet for a stride. So I did 3 of them. It was 9 feet long, and that was equal on every side. At least it appeared that way. I had fascination. There was light coming out from underneath the craft yet, because I didn't even have to use a flashlight out there. And you know how dark that forest can be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I was like looking underneath, and I couldn't see no landing gear, and I said, I wonder how this is supporting itself. And so, I pushed on it, and it was solid. It didn't even move 1 millimeter. It was that solid. And but somehow it was fixed over the ground with this light. Technology that I still don't understand, because obviously we find out later it left impressions in the ground. And so I was pretty in awe, and then I had a mixture of emotions from fear to high anxiety to rationalizing it as I was going. And I said, well, I'm still here, so it's got to be benign, Yeah, so that was my thought. So I talked myself down from the panic. I did, and so I still continued to do the investigation. I was looking for obvious things with the craft itself. Every aircraft has this, and that is intake, exhaust ports, flaps, ailerons, things like that. It was void of all those things, which means it cannot fly, but was sitting there.
Well, yeah, flying as the way we know it, yeah.
As the way that's, I mean, we were trained, at least security was trained monthly on aircraft identification, the silhouettes only, stuff like that. I mean, this was a known aircraft in Jane's Book of Aircraft. I mean, but it had sort of human characteristics of it, yeah. I mean, it was triangular at the time. It had a dorsal area, which at the rear of it did not have crew compartments. I looked for those. It did not have any riveting. That it was completely smooth. Then
did you feel that it might have had some sort of living beings on it, or would you not, or you just didn't know, or?
Well, I didn't know. I was just doing whatever facts it was. The thing is it was too small to be manned by a pilot.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just too small for that. So. But somehow it was intelligent because it had intelligent control because it was there. How did it get there? And out in the middle of a forest in Suffolk. How did this happen?
And it seemed to know that you were there as well, didn't it? The people looking at it.
Well, I don't know exactly. I know that it got docile because of the less activity, and it seemed. They didn't take no type of action for my walking around it. I was still hopeful. When I was going to do a 360 walk around, and I was like, I don't know, halfway around, and I seen there was writing on it. I went, oh, thank God, there's writing on this thing. Oh, yeah, I was like relieved, and I says, yeah, it might be, NASA, Russian, it could be anything. I was just hoping for anything. And then when I got close to it, it wasn't writing. It was like glyphs, pictorial glyphs. And I said, oh no. And so, I touched the craft and it was smooth and it was warm to touch. Later found out it's probably because it was emulating gamma radiation. The air temperature at that time of the night was like, I don't know, 32, 33 degrees. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius. You can convert it yourself. Yeah. It was just above freezing.
Yeah,
I think
it's normally pretty cold up there at night, I know. in December.
Yeah, you can see your breath.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty fascinated by it. So I recorded the glyphs and I continued to walk around examining it. And I went around for my second 360 because just to look at it more. And when I got back around, of course, I ran my hand across the craft. It was, like I said, smooth to touch, like black glass is the description I use. And as I came to the first glyph, when I touched that, it was like equivalent to like sandpaper, okay? Coarse sandpaper, like it was etched in there. And so I'm fascinated. There's no doubt about that. I'm in awe because I am pretty sure that we don't have anywhere in our inventory anything like this.
No. But of course, your camera, you said you had no film left by then, otherwise we may have had some photographs of it.
I don't even think the film would have mattered because of the investigation on the following day by Sergeant Neville's disaster preparedness. He took his own camera out and the film of the immediate area right on the craft, and with the Geiger counter readings showed that there was radiation there. But it was only at the landed area of the craft. It was no farther out than that, according to Monroe Nevels, who I trust. No, he has no
agenda.
Nothing. Yeah, he has nothing to gain by it. He has no skin in the game at all. So as I walked around again, and I'm feeling this, and the center glyph was a triangular one, and it was above the other ones. And I'll tell you, the glyphs measured, based on my extending my arms at it, about 3 feet long, stretched out, and the bottom row underneath the triangular one, I would say they're 4 to 5 inches high. They were, because of my hand. I used that to gauge it. And the one on top was considerably larger. I would say it's probably 10 inches. Something like that. And so when I touched that, I had a blinding light, and all I could see is white light. And I started gaining my senses. I don't know how long I held on to that. I don't really know. And once during that, I mean, I was getting, with this white light, like flashes of numbers and all kinds of stuff. It was like crazy stuff. And then when I sort of got gaining my senses, and all I did was just take my hand off of it, and it immediately stopped. And even though it appeared to be a brilliant white light, it couldn't have been a light, because I had my night vision. And I think you know this, most people do, if you are out in a dark area and you get blinded by white light, your night vision's gone for at least a half hour, 40 minutes. I mean, but I didn't have that effect. So whatever it was I'm calling light did not act like light, okay? Meaning that I still had my night vision. But after doing that, I didn't touch the craft after that. That's the last thing I was going to do, is touch it again. I didn't know if and I started backing away, because I started seeing the light, clumps of light start appearing again and start moving toward the.
Because you might have felt that could have been a warning of some sort. Don't touch again.
No, exactly, David. I got worried, because I started backing away from it. I said, "Holy, what did I do? Activate something? Is this going to explode? Is it going? I didn't know. I didn't think it was going to be good for me though. So I backed away from it, and the light started, the white light started coming back and was starting to get brilliant. I got back on the ground, and it lifted up and sort of moved back through the trees that it cannot move back through the trees because they're too close together. Okay, it went back through the trees, and maybe 10, 15 feet. And then it lifted up to the canopy of the forest, made a slight right turn, and in a blink of an eye, it was gone. Immediately, I got back up, and as I got up, I heard branches to the right of me, maybe 20 feet away was Burroughs, and he came up to where I was, and he's agitated, he's excited, he is babbling. I assumed he'd seen exactly what I seen. And he reacquired it, which is hard to do. But he reacquired it, and he says, "Look over there," and he took off toward it. And here I am. I'm trying to maintain a team concept. You don't ever separate from your team. That is a rule number one. Okay. In the military. So I went after him. And it was we were going fast. We went over, it wasn't very far into the forest there. We had a double fence, that went into the farmer's field. We jumped that and went across that farmer's field. I think I fell down a couple times in there because it was
Yes.
it was moist. It was moist. It was like water.
Yeah, and it's not that level, is it? It's all over the place.
No, it wasn't. And excuse me. So I pursued. I was pursuing after him, and I hadn't reacquired it. And we had got past those farmhouses and another road, and finally he stops, and I get up to him. I said, "My God!" I says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I says, where is it?" And he says, "You still see it?" And he says, "Yeah, it's over there." And I go, "Where?" He says, "Over there." And he points his arm down, and I look down his arm, and he's pointing in the opposite direction, and he's pointing at the lighthouse.
Yeah.
I said, "That's the lighthouse." And he goes, "No, it's not." And then I reacquire it. It's over to my right. I guess it would have been the southeast. It was sitting over just above the tree line on the canopy of the forest. You can see it sitting again. And it was there maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And then it, at a fairly high rate of speed, went out over toward the North Sea and east. And it was at that time we walked on back, and the discussion was minimal. Still agitated, the airman was, and I'm just trying to think, how am I going to explain all of this? I mean, and everybody's going to want to know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And
everyone's going to start taking I'll call it the Mickey out of you, if you know what I mean. That you've seen a UFO.
Yeah, but I didn't really think that would ever happen.
Oh.
I mean, it was a security situation. No, I mean, we had radar contact, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. You got backup,
plus my transmissions. On the radio. Anyway, the law enforcement on the way back goes, "What are we going to tell him? What are we going to tell him? What are we going to tell him?" He says, "We're not going to tell him nothing." I said, "I'm going to be doing the talking, not you." That's how it works. And so on the way back, we get to the East Gate. The law enforcement guy goes with his patrol toward, the front side of the base. And we go on the short route, with security to the back gate at Bentwaters. And it was, the posting bus. It was a Metro. And on there, the other security guys were asking questions. And I was busy sketching down some stuff in my notebook. It was all supportive, but mainly it was they were curious, like, okay, what happened? Because there was different vantage points for everybody. I found out later, from Sergeant Hall and, who had a security response team over at Bentwaters. He watched it apparently land. See, I never seen nothing like that. And then we have the guys that are working at Woodbridge Base Security. Everybody seen the takeoff, about 80 of us, so that was pretty well documented that way. It was quite the night.
So the next morning, after this event, I mean, I suppose you got back to the base, and what did you do? Just turn in for the night, and
No, when I got back to CSC to turn in my machine gun, the M16, and Sergeant Chandler's waiting for me, and I said, "Jesus, Sergeant Chandler, you wouldn't believe what the hell happened out there." And he goes, "Oh," he says, "I was at the East Gate, so I seen everything." I said, "Oh, okay." He says, "Just go in, turn your gun in." He says, "The day shift commander wants to see you, Captain Verano, because Lieutenant England had left early because he was taking a flight back to the States." Okay. So Verano was the day shift commander. So I turned everything in. I had my notes for my 1569, that's some of the stuff I wrote on the bus or on the posting bus coming back. Writing the times down, converting in the military time, stuff like that. And I was going to give it to Sergeant Coffey so he could write the incident complaint report that attaches to the security blotter, which is the accounting of what happened. And I go in there and CSC, and Sergeant Coffey said, I already got the 1569 done. I said, great, let me see it, let me read it. So he hands it to me, and I go through it, times are correct and everything, and I says, oh, good job. So I says, that means you heard everything. He says, yes, we heard the whole transmissions, all of them. That's how he could do the 1569. And so that means I didn't have to do that. So I kept my notes for the 1569, which are in the upcoming book. Then I went outside and I ran into Aaron Burroughs, and I said, the shift commander wants to see us. I invited Burroughs with me. I was told that I was supposed to report, but I figured I need support. And so I went in and I reported to Captain Verano. I kept it sanitized. I was worried about my career. I mean, at that time, nobody in the Air Force reported UFOs. That just was a dead-end street for your career. 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, that was a dead-end street for your career to talk about that. Anyway, Captain Verano was a very patient man, very, very generous, very kind to us. He just sat there, tapping his pencil while we were reporting. I said, I say structure craft, I was like, and I explained the coloring and stuff like that. He says, gentlemen, Project Blue Book ended in 69. He says, there is no way to report this. And he says, I'm not even sure it's a good idea that career-wise we report this. And so Captain Verano says, I will investigate it further. And of course, they knew where the enter control point was because they had the grid coordinates I gave them, the plotting. So Captain Verano knew that. And so we had, I was taking Burroughs back and forth to the base per his flight chief's request because he was having issues. And so I was going to take him back to Ipswich, and I ran by the base photo lab, dropped off my film, which is normal if you take film, did the work order up. Then he was adamant about going back out there. I said, I don't want to go back out there. He says, no, I have to go back out there. I said, okay, let's go back out there just so you wouldn't be nagging. He was nagging me like to death. And I'm traumatized by this. And I said, okay, we'll do that, and then we'll go back. And we went out there, and we went out to the area, and I'm looking around. It looks a little different, because it's daylight. And then I hear him hollering at me. He says, over here. And I go on over where he's at. He says, look at this stuff. And in the ground was 3 impressions. I said, wow. I says, it left impressions in the ground. And I couldn't figure that out because all I seen was light. And it was like holding, And so I said, let's get out of here. That's enough for me. And it was enough for him apparently too. And then we ran into, I think it was Sergeant Goulias. I can't remember who it was we ran into right now. I have to look at my notes. I think it was Goulias, maybe Verano. They told us we seen them pulling up. That was it, maybe that. And anyway, so we went back to Ipswich. We're muddy, we're wet, we're tired. Speaking for myself, I was anyway.
Yeah. And cold, no doubt, as well.
Yeah, the cold was coming in, no more adrenaline going on, and I was pretty exhausted. And so I get to my house, and of course Burroughs is still with me because he's like glue. He was right behind me. I mean, it was like he was with me, and I go there. My wife at the time, ex-wife, and she's there, and we roomed out a room to Sergeant Kennedy, security police, and he was there. And of course, Kennedy says, "Man, you guys look like shit." And I go, "We had a rough night," and Burrow blurts out, "Oh, we were chasing UFOs," and I wanted to strangle them. And they started laughing. And I went, "Okay, I don't want to hear a word from you guys again about this, because I'll never talk about it with you guys again. Okay, if that's your reaction." And here's the ironic part of it. Everything that happened, we could have told. We had no restrictions at all. It wasn't top secret at that point in time, and I could tell everything to them, but they lost the opportunity right then and there, because of Burroughs, I think, because of that reaction. Yeah. Anyway, so he went back to his apartment. He lived about a block away, and so I was worried about the Air Force. I was worried about, would they try to cover this up? Would they dismiss it? Would they, these are things that run through my mind. So our landlord did like interior decorating stuff, and that. I went down to see him in his garage. He says, "Well," he said, "if you got landing marks in the ground," he says, "you could take plaster Paris for that." And I went, "Wow." He says, "Yeah, I got some stuff here. I'll mix it up to you." I said, "I'll get it all ready for you." He says, "Get everything set up for you. You can go out there and do that." I said, "Okay." And he was looking at me like I was crazy too, by the way. And but he was humoring me because I paid rent every month, I guess. Anyway, that's what I did. I went back out there with backpack. I went out and did poured the impressions. At that time, I smoked cigarettes, so I sat there and I smoked 3 cigarettes, whatever that takes. Maybe that's how long I was there, till it hardened, fairly hardened. They were still soft, but I pulled them and put them in the backpack. And on the way back in, I run into Major Drury, the deputy squadron commander. I run into Captain Verano. I run into Sergeant Julius, and I got the deputy squadron commander, Major Drury, said, "What are you doing out here?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I got caught. I got caught doing stuff I'm not supposed to be." And I went, "I just want to take another look." And he says, You're supposed to be taking a break. You're supposed to be on a 3-day break." He says, "Go in, take your 3-day break. Don't worry about this. We're taking care of it." And I went, "Okay." And I thanked him, and I got out of there and went back to the house, thinking that my involvement is pretty much over. Then, of course, I still cannot sleep. I'm up for the rest of the day. Then I'm still having flashes of these numbers. I just thought I was just traumatized so bad by it that I thought it was just part of the trauma, and it would subside eventually. I went to bed. I got up. I was late. I don't know, 11, 12 o'clock that night. I got back up. I knew I wasn't going to be able to sleep, so I made a pot of coffee. I figured, what the hell, sat there and had my cup of coffee at early morning hours. And I'm sitting at my dining room table, and I'm second guessing everything. I mean, so I'm wondering, I got the plastic Paris pods, which was good. I looked at them. I pulled my notebook back out, and I'm looking at my notes. And then, of course, the glyphs and the things like that. I'm going through it, and I'm in my mind's eye. I'm thinking, I can write these ones and zeros down. I think I can. And so I got a pen, and I sat down, and I started writing these ones and zeros. And as I did it, I just felt better. It felt relieving. And I was saying, "Oh, okay, this is just really bad trauma," So, and also, the pen stop. You know how pens are; they stop. The ones you got in your drawers are always stopping. So I'm panicking, looking for another pen, finding one that works. I continue to write those ones and zeros down. I do it until I no longer see them in my mind's eye.
But they made no sense to you at all, what you were writing.
Oh no, this is a mental breakdown. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. But once I stopped and I couldn't see it anymore, I felt so good. I said, I was tired too. I said, I can go to sleep. And so I did. And the next morning, I get up and I'm thinking, oh, I think I just dodged a bullet. I'm okay. Because what I was thinking of before, if it didn't stop these issues I was having, I would have to go to the base clinic the following morning, and I could just hear that conversation. I'm seeing ones and zeros. Because I was in a forest and I seen a unidentified craft of unknown origin sitting there, and I watched it take off. And where would that conversation go? Yeah, it would go that, well, let's start discharging Jim Penniston, take his gun away. Career would be over at my 8 years in. And so I figured I dodged it. So it was a very traumatic event, and that's why I kept that such. I thought, first of all, I didn't think it was significant, the ones and zeros, and the other thing is I thought it was part of a mental breakdown, and so I kept it private because I was embarrassed by it, and so that was a number of years not saying anything. I just pushed them, took them and put them all. I put them all in the back of the envelope of the notebook because I was doing a film shoot in like 2002 or 3, and I went too far in there, and I didn't want anybody else to see them. I said, I don't want, so I was shooting a film with Colonel Hall. So I, just taking them out and sticking them in an envelope, and then I'm thinking I got them all out of there anyway. That's what I thought. I just reached in as a group of them and pulled them out. It was a loose leaf type notebook, by the way. It wasn't very big, but that's why you could do that. And then, like in 2000, I don't know, it was 11 or 10, something like that. We're going to do a film shoot. I got called by Linda Moulton Howe to do a film shoot in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I went out there, and in the middle of that shoot, it was for Ancient Aliens. And while I was still sitting there getting filmed in the chair, at that time they actually had film. They were changing the film and reloading it. And I was getting questions from Burroughs about a date, about a specific date. And so I don't know, it might be in the notebook. So I'm flipping through the notebook, and I go too far, and there's like 4 or 5 pages still left in the back of the binary. And I go too far, and I cannot get it shut fast enough, right? And Burroughs goes, "What's that?" I said, "Nothing." And I thought, okay, I'll just tell him what happened. I'll tell him it's, because it's part of that breakdown. But I don't want anybody else to know about it. And so I said, "Oh, that's what happened." I said, afterwards with these ones and zeros, he said that I was writing down from the incident. And so it was actually Burroughs and Linda Moulton Howe that they actually discovered the binary. All right. I was never going to make that public due to the fact I thought it was a mental breakdown. And so it went from there where we had the film crew and the producer, they were interested in it, and they were asking me about getting, copies of it. And I said, I'll think about it. And I went back and flew back to Illinois, and I get a call from Kim Sharon. She's a producer for Prometheus Pictures, who does Ancient Aliens. And she says, why don't you send them to me? Well, maybe we can get them deciphered. And I said, I don't think they'll mean anything. It was just a bad time for me. And no, she said, let's just do that. Okay. And I said, that's fine. So the 5 that, I think it was 5 pages that were exposed from that Phoenix shoot, I scanned them and I sent them to her. And of course, I got Linda Moulton Howell. She's like calling me daily about them. About the binary. And I put her off for about 3 or 4 days until I got word back from Kim Sharon. She called me and she says, hey, let's do a video chat, or Skype or whatever it was at the time. Yeah. And then I was on the phone with her too at the same time. So she was going through and I said, what's the deal, Kim? She said, well, we had an independent study of those binary, and there's a message in it. I said, no way. And she says, no. And we went through it, and so I got this decipher from them, and it was strange because what she was telling me from the decipher is stuff I already seemed to know. I mean, it was the impressions I had, or I guess looking back in retrospect, it was the communication was there. I just didn't know. I didn't know there was a documentation of it. You know what I mean? And, because that all started making sense. Some of the stuff they were saying in the decipher. So I don't trust Hollywood. I don't trust Prometheus Pictures. I said, you know what? I'm gonna run a scan of these pages, and I'm gonna send them to Linda Howell, and because she says that she can get someone to look at them. And she did. And she was very happy to get them. She had a professor down in Australia and one in North Carolina, I believe, and a guy from Colorado and some other. There's like 4 more sources. And so I wait. I get a call like 2 or 3 days later from Linda, and she is livid. She's just beside herself. She's so excited. She says, oh, there's a message in there. She says, it says something. I said, okay, what does it say? And she goes through exactly what Prometheus Pictures decryption did. I know. Oh, I said, okay, so I don't know what to think of that. I says, it's the same as Prometheus. She says, what do you mean Prometheus? I said, well, I ran it through Prometheus first. And they came up, and I was just wondering if you would too. And she wasn't happy about that. She was sort of upset, matter of fact, that I guess shared it with Prometheus first. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's ufology. I think everybody wants to have the I got.
Yeah, you want.
I don't know. But that's how it came about. And then of course, I was being. They wanted to, then Prometheus wants to do a second show. They want to go to the UK. And you know what? I sort of wanted to go back to the UK and see the landing site myself. So I had a little bit of self-interest that way. And since they were going to sponsor it, I got talked into it.
Yeah,
matter of fact, I got phone calls every day from Linda Moulton Howell and definitely John Burroughs about doing that show. And finally I agreed. And I decided that, okay, I'll put the binary. I didn't like it, but it was I was being really pressured on it by them. And I said, okay, that's what I'll do. Since there is something to it, I'll go on that show and let it go out. And I did. And we get to the UK, and we're doing the film shoots over there, and I'm glad I went because it was a unique experience going back to the so-called scene of the crime. You get really total recall. I mean, when you're especially with other witnesses that were there. And so I was really happy about that. Then Kim, she after shooting all day, and it was fairly late, about 10 o'clock at night, she says, well, here's the show. It's being broadcast on December 31st, which was 6 hours before we were talking about it. And she showed us the clip, and I was thinking, oh, well, everything's out of the bag here, you know. I mean, there's no going back from it, you know. And but it was a step that I guess I needed to take, and even though I didn't think it was a good idea at the time. And then that was one of the things that Nick Pope wanted to put, you know, do a book and put it in. And I figured, okay, it's out, so I'll, you know, and I'll tell you what, David, I never believed in UFOs or anything like that, going into that forest.
I was actually going to ask you that later, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I left there completely. The paradigm was just it just changed everything.
Yeah. Well, I think that happens actually. It's you hear that a lot of people that don't believe in UFOs, and they see one and they think, well, what the hell's that? So yeah.
Well, yeah, I think everybody tries to talk themselves out of it by saying we're trying to rationalize it, and that's what I did too. I was really trying to rationalize it, and it was well, I can't.
Well, no, I think you start coming up with theories. Like, I mean, like I've heard you mention things like it could be time travelers, or I mean, I've got a theory it could actually be something interdimensional. You know.
Well, that's what. Well, when I'm talking time travel, that's what I'm talking about. Is interdimensional. Hollywood calls it time travel.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's interdimensional travel, and I'll tell you what, the work my co-author did on this in the Rendlesham Enigma is, Gary, it was just brilliant. And he was the head of our Rendlesham Forest research team for 9 years. And so he was, but one of the discoveries he came up with, and this only came out the 28th of, I believe the 28th of May of this year, is the fine structure constant. And this is something that's embedded in it, I guess, throughout the universe, according to Gary, and according to Carl Sagan, and according to NASA, and according to the physicists, and according to all these people, this fine structure constant is in the binary code. And what Gary has found, and you can have him on a show after this.
I'll
explain in detail, but here's what's really unique about it. Due to the time at 1980, the fine structure constant, he went for what it was back then and compared to today and that. And I guess this fine structure constant is like everything that we deal with is within this 7 decimal points. Everything, that's pretty much where everybody's at. But if it goes to like the 8th, the fine structure constant, if you get a message in there with the 8th in there, it means it comes from a really intelligent source. And this is the stuff that NASA and Carl Sagan were looking for in the original message that they put out, I guess, in one of the Voyager missions or something. They looked for the response to be in this 8th decimal point over. But the fascinating part of it, and that means that those people it would be a really intelligent source that this message would come from. But what the discovery from 1980 through Gary's research is this fine structure constant goes over not 8, but 14 decimal points.
Right.
So it's absolute proof that this is a higher intelligence. What it is exactly, I don't know.
No, I don't understand it either.
But he'll go into that. If you have him on the show, he'll be glad to go through that, and it's quite fascinating. And something he'll tell you his theories too.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to get Gary on. When did you actually get involved with Gary to get the book written? Because it seems to have been quite a few years, it's probably at least 3 years now that I've heard this book's on its way.
When we get involved writing the book, or when I first...
Yeah, well, when you first got involved with Gary.
It was through another friend. When I was having... This is back in 2009, 2010. I was having dreams, and I was having dreams with this 23.5 degrees, which I thought it was temperature and stuff like that, temperature stuff, but it was a reoccurring dream. I had it ever since Rendlesham.
It's funny you're saying things like this, because I've got some questions in front of me which I'm going to put to you a bit later. But some of these things you're mentioning are actually in these questions, which is
right. No, that's the whole Rendlesham Enigma book tells all this stuff. Okay. Anyway, this person says, well, there's this guy on the internet, and his name is Gary Osborne, and he's done some kind of research on it. Okay. So I'll set it up, send a message to him, and I did. I never heard of him until that point. I sent it to him, and Gary was doing a book. I can't remember what the name was for somebody else, and I think Scott Crichton at the time, that was his name. I think it was called the Giza Prophecy or something like that. And anyway, Gary, he gets back to me and goes, he says, I need to know more. He says, but this is not about temperature. This is about degrees of the planet. And, so I said, okay. So I sent him the binary. And so this had to be in 2011 or 2010. Anyway, I sent him the binary pages, and I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and research it. I says, come up with whatever you come up with. I'll give you free reign. I'm not going to try to influence you. I just want answers. Okay. And so he did, and I didn't contact him like 6 months, 10 months, or something like that. And finally, I get him. I said, how are you coming on that? He says, well, I thought you didn't care anymore. He says, you haven't contacted me. I said, no, I don't want to influence you. I want to, unbiased report either way. I don't care. If it's, BS, tell me. If it's whatever. And then he continued to research all the way up through 2015 or 2014. It's around the time the Encounter book was coming out, because he's now on the Rendlesham Forest research team along with other people. So the Encounter book was going to come out, so I let Nick know. I said, Nick, I got Gary Osborne. He's got like 50 pages he wants to write, and I have 80 I want to go in there. And anyway, so I go ahead and get the proofreading for the Encounter book, and it's just full of mistakes. I would say the Encounter book has half mistakes. Okay.
Oh right. I was going to ask you about that. If you still.
It's horrible. And Nick knows this. We've had a conversation about it. And, it's not bad. I wouldn't, and Nick's, because when I sent it in to change, Nick said, I already sent it off to the publishers. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just done. And I said, okay. But Nick says, here's what I suggest. I suggest you write your own book on the Rendlesham Code. And I said, okay, I will. And since Gary's 50 pages wasn't even read or introduced in that book, and my 80, the meat and potato ones, were not put in that book, we had 150 pages to write there.
Yeah, you had a good start already. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we started in 2015, but Gary's methodical. We made sure everything was could not be dissected. I mean, the math doesn't lie, and anytime that we put I say something or something is fact, it is noted, and then Gary has it not just one level deep, but sometimes up to 6 or 7 levels deep in evidence from other witnesses, collaborating or whatever, saying that, that that's exactly what I'm saying. And so it's interesting. I probably wrote about 350 pages in the book, telling everything about the Rendlesham Forest incident that I knew, and afterwards, which is very important, and because of the cover-up. And then Gary's stuff it went primarily into notes, and what he did is researched everything I said. He was a skeptic. Everything I said he researched, and so what that produced in the Rendlesham Enigma book, it produced a book with the facts, evidence, and then what the reader can do is at the end of the day after reading this and make up their own conclusions. I'm not trying to convince anybody what happened. I just stated the facts and what happened. One of the other more interesting things is is the cover-up part and how that came about. And it also tells about how left to east, the information left to East Gate came about.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's pretty in-depth. And all this is, of course, backed up by sources and, who were there and who were involved. And unlike what has been touted by some witnesses, I was taken care of. I was, they were concerned enough. I mean, like, Major Zickler, he was only there like 8 months after the incident, and he got an assignment out of there. And they replaced that major with a lieutenant colonel, and his name was, which is odd by that way anyway, the lieutenant colonel would replace the major, and it was Colonel Charles Highbush, who was, he just got there. And at that time, I had my job in plans and programs. I was the NCOIC there for security police. And so I get a call like 2 days after the new commander comes in, and saying, I got to go up to his office. He wants to talk to me. And I said, wow. I said, so I'm like looking at overlays of, classified plans, top secret plans, all that stuff, because I figured that's what he's going to talk about since my position was plans and programs. Mm. And so I go up there and I have all these books. And I go in there and I go, I can't even report right. I can't even salute him when I go and I got these books. And I said, I said, I'm sorry, Penniston. He says, no. He says, he wants out. He goes over and says, he says, put that stuff down. I said, I brought certain plans up that, he said, I don't care about that. I go, what? And he goes, no. He says, I'm Chuck Highbush. He says, I just came from the Pentagon. And he says, I worked security police intelligence there, which when I checked, there is no such thing as security police intelligence there at the Pentagon. Okay? And he says, I'm here for if you have problems about the incident. He said, I seen the classified report on it, your statement that you did, which is the 4-page one I wrote after the incident at the OSI building to the 2 other agents that were there, that he seen. So I knew that made it to the Pentagon because he read it. And he was my lifeline, someone that I could talk to throughout my Air Force career. And which he did, and we met in various places. He'd show up at bases I was at when I was in Germany or something like that. It's all described in the Rendlesham Enigma book, and I think it's quite fascinating. A part of the incident that nobody knows, because I just Colonel Highbush knows. I mean, he knew, but we kept it pretty confidential. Well, at the time, until I got out of the service, I thought, I was told that the Rendlesham Force incident was top secret, so I never did talk about it, even though I heard about it at every base I was at, people buzzing and talking about it. I couldn't say nothing. And then when I got ready to, so how can I talk about the Rendlesham Force incident if it was top secret? How can I do that? Well, I'll tell you how. Here's where Colonel Hawk comes into it. He retired like a year or two before I did. And I think he did Unsolved Mysteries with Burroughs. And that's where Burroughs, he describes the triangular craft and everything. It's all in there. But anyway, Colonel Hall, what he tells me, he says, hey, when you retire, whatever you do, when you do the NDA, non-disclosure agreement, because for classified, he says, make sure it covers, make sure that it's covered about, he used the word, the Bentwaters Woodbridge incident. I said, okay, because that's what he did. And I said, what happened to you? And he said nothing happened there. So they go in. I said, oh, really? I said, yeah, that'd be pretty good to get. So I'm at Penniston Air Force Base in 1993, and I'm out processing to retire. And the personnel guy's in front of me, the sergeant, staff sergeant, and I said, I read the NDA. I mean, it's got all kinds of stuff, about nuclear stuff and other special access programs. Yeah, all that stuff's in there. I says, it doesn't say anything about Bentwaters or Woodbridge in it. It says 1980. I says, is that classified or is it unclassified or what? And he said, well, I'll send a Twix. They call them Twix, the message, classified message off then to the Pentagon, air staff, and asked that question. And I said, okay, so you're going to get back to me? Yeah. So he said he'd get back to me, and that was like a couple days later, I get a call from personnel office at Grissom. He said, come on down and finish your out processing. I said, oh, great. So I go back on there, and he tells me he has a Twix message in his hand. He says, I got a really strange response from the Pentagon on that. He says, here's what it says. He says, nothing classified happened on those dates in question at that base, so therefore nothing is classified. Really strange response. And I says, can I have a copy of that? That's how it is. The Air Force said nothing happened, and said it was unclassified.
So did you get a copy of it?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, you just gave it to us. Fine.
Yeah, so did Colonel Hall. We both did. I mean, that's why we can talk about it. And if anybody says they're in the military or working for DLD, and they're talking about something, they said it was a top secret program, believe me, it's still top secret, okay? And they got to have, and they got to have an NDA that would say they can't talk about it. So what that tells you is probably most of the stuff that's being said now, especially like this TTSA stuff, that stuff obviously is either embellished, made up, or a disinformation program, because if it was classified top secret then, it's top secret now. Okay? I mean, there's stuff right now that I know is top secret from when I was in. It's still classified. It's not gonna be declassified either. So that's just to give you a background as top secret and special access programs, and acknowledged and unacknowledged special access programs work the same way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. All that. I can't wait for the book to come out. Actually.
Yeah, I think you're gonna be surprised. This is not a typical Rendlesham book. I mean, I tell you what, in my personal opinion, the best book so far about Rendlesham Forest was done by Georgina Bruin.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
And it had mistakes, but she did a great job on that. And I told Georgina this many times, and I was pretty pleased with it. And so, in a way, it's a continuation of Georgina's work. The other books, take them and throw them away.
Well, one has been, hasn't it? Left at Eastgate was withdrawn. And
yeah, but there's an interesting part about that whole story in there, and how that developed, and how that airman came up with that. It's all factual, and it's got other people involved, so it's a pretty it's enlightenment. You're going to be enlightened by it.
Yeah, I can't wait, as I say. I mean, what do we go there? Do you want to answer some questions that people have put to you, Jim? You did ask me to ask people if they've got any questions for you.
Did you get any, David?
Yeah, I've got a list of them. They're not too many, and there's nothing too traumatic, like I say. I mean, I've got one or two questions myself. And when you went off base, did you? I think you said you didn't take any weapons with you, did you?
No, we couldn't because of the status of forces agreement. Besides that, it just made the British really nervous.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the status of forces agreement is even. I mean, if let's say they were flying a nuke aircraft over the country somewhere and it crashed, guarantee you we'd all be armed, and we'd have a national. You know what I mean? But there's certain situations that we would, but going to an aircraft crash is not a armed response. You know.
No. I've heard another report that one of the people claiming to be on guard duty on a different night to the RFI was actually on guard with an M60. Now, would this ever happen?
No.
It wouldn't happen.
No.
Okay. Well, I think you know what I'm referring to, but.
No, I don't.
I know that M60s were on the base because I've actually asked at the Cold War Museum.
Oh, Yeah, we used them for exercise and that, and for wartime type missions. They never were used to normal security. Never.
I'm for anyone out there doesn't know what M60 is. A heavy duty machine gun.
Yeah, you just happen to have the guy that wrote all the security police plans and programs. That's security directives and everything for the base from 1981 to 1984. I know for a fact that they're never used, period.
Right. Okay, that's good. Well, it's answered something anyway. I'll get into a few questions that people have put to me. I think you may well have covered some of it anyway. There's a chap named Gary Jones. He says, could you ask Jim how his close encounter affected his health in the short and long term? He heard it mentioned in the Boston hearings that it seems that there's connections with close encounters and craft that emit strong EMF fields. It's good evidence for researchers to have. Don't know. I think you've already covered most of that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, no, our health wasn't affected in the area, really. I mean, initially, there was some, I don't know if it was from the trauma or whatever, but there were some effects going on. Like I said, the only place for the radiation was the actual craft, as this has been established by the MOD and by Sergeant Nevels. The U.S. Air Force was right at the craft landing site. And so no other person was exposed to any type of radiation or exposure except me.
Oh, there's one question. There's a question that raises in. John Burroughs had a payout from the Air Force, which he says was affected from this incident. What's your opinion of that?
The Condon report is something that he likes to tout. It's 460 pages long. It's UK eyes only, and I think it's low-level classification, UK restricted, Navy secret. Anyway, when we're writing the encounter book, Burroughs was handling that along with Nick Pope, and they showed me 2 pages out of this 460-page document. One of them had a paragraph in it with a line that said it could be postulated that this could have happened at Bentwaters. And the second page said all wing commanders know about this information, this UAP stuff. So I took that as gospel. And then after we had the stuff sent to the publishers for the encounter book, they send me, I finally get the whole 460 pages. And I said stuff, and I was like angry in the book, at the encounter book, like at Colonel Williams and stuff, that he knew about this stuff. And it turns out, I get the counter report, the first page tells me he didn't know nothing about it. It says UK restricted for UK eyes only. That means no U.S. forces ever seen this. I call it the report is just a red herring. It was only limited distribution, like 10 agencies or people. And I'll tell you what, the British government, they got a lot of muck on their face over this Rendlesham Forest incident. I'll tell you what, here's what really happened with the MOD and the RAF. I mean, think about it this way. Here you have your airspace during the height of the Cold War encroached upon twice at least, and then exited twice at least during a 3-day period in December, and the RAF sleeps and the MOD sleeps, while the British citizens are relying on the U.S. government, the U.S. Air Force. That wasn't our job.
Yeah, that's a good.
That was the MOD. That's the MOD and the RAF's job. Why didn't they do it?
It's a good point, Jim. Actually,
No, I mean, if I was a British citizen sleeping that night and I found that out, I'd be pretty upset.
Yeah. Was it?
What happens if that's Spetsnaz ANG-2 Colt aircraft with 10 Spetsnaz, troopers on there going to sit there and sabotage stuff, in the UK? Who would know?
Yeah, that's it.
I know, I would have been upset about that.
Right. Okay. Well, Gary Jones has got a second question, and remember you mentioned about your dreams. He said, ask about his dream state too. I'd like to know if he sees things that go beyond his wildest imaginations and understandings. So I know you touched on a bit about dreams and things, didn't you?
Yes.
Oh, was that it? Is that it?
Yes. No, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Okay.
I do share some of the stuff in the Reynolds from Enigma, most of it, matter of fact. But some of it just scares me.
Oh, right, yeah. I think we all get those.
I was there and I'm not buying all this. It's just like, yeah, some of that stuff just, that's the other thing. What's his name, Jerry?
Gary Jones. He's Gary with an I.
I talked a little bit back and forth with him.
Yes, that's right. I think I saw that, yeah.
He thought he was going to offend me. You ask. I tell you what, ask all the questions you want because I understand what happened there. I sort of understand. I mean, I was involved, so there's no doubt in my mind what transpired in front of me. I mean, none, zero, no airspace at all. But if I was in his position or your position, looking at this from the outside, I'd be asking tough questions too. Yes. And I don't mind that one bit. I don't.
No, I can see that, Jim. I mean, I've spoken to you quite a bit, and I think you're pretty straightforward with a lot of what you say, and I think, like everybody, you don't really know what happened to you anyway.
No, I mean, the interesting thing is about that. H.A.S. Rail, that's her pen name, but her real name is Sally Rail. She wrote, we actually did a project back when the internet was starting. It was with Microsoft. It was called Project Watchfire. And Colonel Halt was involved with that too. And the days before internet, 1994 or something.
I remember those days too. What did we do with ourselves? I don't know.
I don't know. And then at the end of the article, she says these two questions remain the same today. That she asked at the end of the article she wrote. She says, 2 questions remain. She says, who are they and where do they come from? And that's the same thing that really remains today. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, you're right. We're still answering the very same question. Yeah, you're right. Okay, right, we'll go on to the next one. We've got Chris Evers. I think you probably may have heard that name. He does the OLM magazine. And he says, when he thinks back now to that night and the events surrounding the RFI, is he glad the information was made public, or does he regret it? If he regrets it, why does he? I know you've kind of addressed that as well, haven't you? I mean, do you regret the whole thing came out, or?
Well, no. I tell you what, I'm glad it came out because with the information being public is safety. Okay, having it fully public is safety for all the people that were involved. That's my belief on that.
Yeah, that kind of answers the question, really, doesn't it? He says, also ask his opinions on the current AATIP and TTSA series of unidentified. I think you've kind of touched on that a little bit as well. Yeah. I think what's your opinion on it, really?
Well, there's so many issues with the people that are involved with that. And these things that don't make sense. One of them we talked about earlier, the NDA, non-disclosure agreement. How can they talk about stuff that they have an NDA with? How does that work? Unless it's a false flag operation, or they're just being UFO opportunists and entertainers. I don't know.
Sure, and there's plenty of those around, I know.
Yeah, usually most of them are on the lecture circuit for ufology.
Right, the next question is from Philip Kinsella. He'd love to ask Jim if he's had any other UFO experiences since Rendlesham. He says he loves the guy too, and maximum respect. Just interested to know if he's had any other encounters, so to speak. No,
tell Philip that one has been sufficient.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I
think that's kind of a question everyone gets, isn't it? Once you've had an experience, have you had any more?
Yeah, no, I've been fortunate that way. I tell you what, what I don't understand is why the other people that were, on the first night, why don't they have trauma?
Oh, well, I lost you for a second.
I mean, I had 39 years, going on 40 here. I had a rough go of this. I mean, and to the point where it's starting to become normal. The PTSD part of it, even. Yeah, I mean, and why wouldn't other people have that? I don't understand.
Well,
I don't understand.
I think somebody's pretended to have it, but.
Well, mine's medically. It's factual. Unfortunately, that's the case. Yeah.
All right. There's next question is from Malcolm Robinson. You may have heard the name. He writes some UFO books and paranormal books. Does Jim believe that there's still a UFO presence in this area? And also, what possible reason would any so-called alien craft want in this area? Was it to do with the nuclear missiles stored on site, or could there be another reason? And if so, what?
Well, what I've found so far by visiting the coordinate site, and even though Rendlesham Woodbridge was not a coordinate site, it's on the same plane of it, the same latitude, and in Sedona. And I'm going to go to some more after. I'm still planning to go some more. And but what I find is, in one of the theories that we have on this, is that these are accessible points, these coordinate sites, and that is why whatever this ability to be interdimensional, it makes it easier. I don't know, with the gravity or with the structure, the way the planet is, or whatever, that these coordinate sites are key. And of course, I don't know. Sizewell, what is it? Isn't that power plant that sits north of the base?
Just down the road to me. Yeah, that's right.
That's huge. I don't know. There's cases that I have followed because of the military aspect, that some involve nuclear material, and some are just hoaxes, and some people don't understand too. Yeah. That's the other part. I think the worst one is that Maelstrom missile thing. That's the worst one I know of. Because there was a problem that used to be top secret with the Boeing missile system. It was a hardware problem that would cause these missiles to go offline, no-go status, arbitrarily throughout the 3 missile fields in North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana. And it's been happening since they put them in the 60s. And they only recently, I think it was in 2005, declassified it, and because they fixed it. They fixed the problem, why they would go no-go status. It was a hardware problem, apparently. So
there was a theory that Cobra Mist project that ended in '73, I think it was, may have caused some sort of a ripple or damage to the if you look at the interdimensional aspect of it. What's your theory? What do you think about that?
Well, the Over the Horizon Radar project, is that what you're talking about?
I believe it was. Yeah, on the Orford Ness.
Well, no, I doubt that.
It's just a theory that I've heard bandied about, and
I think people want to try to connect dots that aren't there, and and because we're trying to rationalize stuff, but I just don't see that. Mainly because of some of the other. I tell you what, the group. I did a national press club with 14 people. With James Fox, I think they did the I Know What I Saw documentary out of it. And these people it was so fascinating. We had the Belgian general there, and I got a week or two to talk and have breakfast with these people, and General Jafari. These are some incredible people, and some and stories that are real. There's no doubt about it, and I think that there's some really bona fide cases out there, but when you start structuring in like what happened in the Belgian wave, you start doing the Iranian thing, and then also there's a couple cases that I'm fascinated with in South America. these are all military guys, and a lot more rank than I have. I mean, they're general officers, and they're truly perplexed by this. But not those cases. None of those cases there had anything to do with nuclear fission type material. So I don't know. I think ufology likes to find a new avenue to sell stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we actually looked at all the cases, I don't know. I don't know what the results would be. I don't think it'd be like the drum that they're beating, though.
Okay, next question. It's a bit of a long, I don't know if it's long and complicated, but it looks it. Right, Peter McGarry. He says, do you believe that research was going on in the area was responsible for the event? So it kind of touches on what we've just said, really. And it says, could our own lasers and EM technology back in 1980 have been sophisticated enough to drive an object like you saw? And does he personally have any problems with this line of thinking?
Yes. No. Okay, Peter, no, that's not possible.
You don't think so?
I tell you, like I said, I wrote the defense plans for both bases, the three communication sites that we're responsible for, which is Martlesham Heath and 4 forward operating locations in Germany. I did site surveys at each of them, including Martlesham Heath. At Martlesham Heath, they had a facility there that was no-windowed facility, and at the time had a retinal eye scanner, so it was pretty high-tech security. Inside there, it was top secret at one time. It's no longer top secret. That research they were doing in there was a common nodal point, and what it did is it analyzed information from our listening sites along the Warsaw PAUK borders and stuff, communications, and that's what it was going on there. There was no research being done in there. I know there's been claims by people that didn't know it, don't even have clearance, didn't have a clearance. They're talking with a secret clearance about top secret stuff. They don't know nothing about it. Okay, you know how top secret works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you have a affiliation with the
signed
government.
the Secret Act, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I found with top secret in the military. A top secret plan might say, or let's say the secret plan is we have a secret plan with Germany or something, and it says, during the first day of the war, we're going to go ahead and fight with you and do this for you and rub your back. Okay, and then top secret plans for that same plan, it might say, well, we'll stay with the Germans until they come to the Rhine, then we're going to go ahead and retreat. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's that kind of stuff comes out. And so that just tells you a secret plan might not, or a portion of a secret of a plan that's top secret, that's secret for dissemination, might not even be close to what the top secret plan looks like. So when someone with secret clearance that says they know something about top secret stuff, they don't.
Yeah, I know. I do know that because there was different levels of secrecy where in my business. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it right now either, David. I mean, because first of all, you probably want to stay out of jail.
Yeah. Well, I know that for a fact. When I had to go over to Herbert Field to do, because I was working on the AC-130, so I can say that because that's not top secret. But there was a meeting going on just before just as the Gulf War was about to begin, and I'm walking over towards this meeting. It was just standing on, as a group thing, and it said, "Go away, David." And I said, "Well, I'm on your side." He said, "Yeah, but this is classified," so they wouldn't even let me in on that.
Yeah, and you're probably working on a sensitive project with the 130s.
Yeah,
right.
I
know, but it all comes down to a need to know. Besides having a clearance, do I have a need to know? If you don't have a need to know, that's how they compartmentalize everything.
Although I was doing the job for them, I was a foreign national, so.
Oh yeah, that too comes into it. That's why I said that Condon report. It says UKIs only. Yeah, I mean the British were only looking at that. Nobody else is like. We have plans like that too. USIs only. I mean, yeah, and we might have a plan with the British, and we're telling them one thing in the secret plan, and our top secret plan with UK or with the USIs only says something different. I mean, that's just the way it
I
works.
know. I even had an argument with the manager over there because I wanted to use the computer to get some emails back to go back home with, and I was told I couldn't use the computer because I was a foreign national, and I had to get my own laptop to bring over to to do the job with, which was crazy.
Yeah, I know, but isn't that crazy? But you know what? The British are the same way. It works that way.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. You know, even though we're all allies in it, you know, we're still independent, sovereign nations.
Well, I mean, I was doing the work, and I needed emails to actually get in touch with back home, so and I couldn't use the computer, which was crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm sure you did have some type of Q clearance or something with the government. I'm sure that if you're working on any type of weapon system, listening system, or whatever, you have access for whatever that is at hand, and that's all you're gonna get. They're not gonna.
Well, so the US government was footing the bill anyway, so I don't really get it. But there you go. Anyway, from Peter's question carries on. I think we covered a bit with the radar and everything. He says, finally, was a Soviet Cosmos satellite brought down around the same time?
I know nothing about that.
Because there is theories that some people say that the RFI was just a Russian satellite, but I don't agree with that.
If one was brought down, you think I would have thought that Bentwaters or Woodbridge people would have been involved, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, that's it. That's kind of. I've heard stories about a satellite being carried through the woods on the bottom of a.
That's the other thing. Of all the people, witnesses involved on whatever night you want to have, I mean, besides Colonel Hall, the only two enlisted people that had top secret clearances was myself and Monroe Nevels. The rest of them all had secret. And I'll tell you what, we don't want to go back into that. The difference is night and day on that axis. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, a secret is just stuff to give you to do your job. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next question. You ready for this one? Nigel Ross. This is an inevitable question you're going to get now. He says, "Hi David, could you please ask Jim on those fateful nights back in 1980? Was it just sheer utter confusion? And in all this confusion, where was Larry Warren in all of this? Thank you."
No, there was no confusion at all. Everything the security, Central Security Control and the on-duty security flight operated all our security protocols that we had, and we did the way we were trained, and as far as we could. I mean, at a certain point in time, after the security situation happened, after I initiated, some of it was ad hoc because I didn't the new experience. But everything was structured. There was no mayhem or nothing. Everything, we were trained so hard. Everything operated like a fine oiled machine, and you can rest assured that happened. There was no chaos at all. I mean, I don't understand that. With the third night, I wasn't there. I can only go by hearsay from Colonel Halt and from Monroe Nevels, who I trust emphatically. I talk to him regularly, and so Colonel Halt. But I don't think there was any. They haven't said there was any chaos. Larry Warren wasn't working, though. I know that's according to Adrian Bestenza. He actually wrote and told me that, and that's in the encounter in the Enigma book as well. That it's briefly covered how he obtained the cover story. Right. So that's in there, and I mean, you know what? There's been so many opportunists. You know, what can you say? That's what really is disturbing about this whole thing with Rendlesham. I mean, the event is sensational by itself. Why would anybody embellish or try to sensationalize it? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, leading on from that, what do you think of this film that's being made at the moment? I mean, we're still waiting for it to appear, the Capel Green film. You must have an opinion on that. because they seem to be building up a lot of different things to add to it to sort of embellish on the RFI itself. What's your feelings on it?
Well, no surprise there. Dion, the producer, got a hold of Colonel Hall.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah,
friends, okay. So, but I own. Hey, he served 25 years. He's shown the respect of Colonel Hall. And I were asked at least 4 times, and matter of fact, right up to a few months ago, about being in this film, and we wouldn't do it because of the people that were involved. We said it's pure science fiction if you involve them, and then they have witnesses. Yeah, they might have been stationed, but they weren't involved. I mean, so Colonel Halton, I view on this whole project from Dion, and believe me, they were begging us to be in that film.
Yeah, sure.
And the colonel was a lot more adamant on his response than I was.
No, he told me. he's copied me all the emails and things anyway. So.
Yes, David, just how.
Yeah. I know Nick Pope refused to be in it as well. He told him where to go, apparently.
I think Nick and Lindemann, I think they're going to sue him. I think they're talking about suing the people. So,
it's getting interesting.
Yeah, but if people go and see it, and just remember it's science fiction, and it's not what happened, and that's just the way it is. I mean, if you're gonna do a film about Rendlesham, I think you'd have the 2 people that at least were in charge in each night, Colonel Hall on the 3rd and me on the 1st. I think you would think you'd have us involved. I mean, there's nothing else that happened.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I think my advice to anybody seeing People Green is don't waste your money.
Okay. I don't think many people will know about it anyway. Right, okay, we've got a couple more questions. You still okay, Jim? You got a little bit more time?
Hey, I did a coast to coast with Connie Willis, man. That was 4 hours from midnight to 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Man,
okay. Well, you got a few more minutes you can spare then. Okay, that's all right. Okay, I think we touched on this as well. Nigel Ross says, why is it that American servicemen and women can talk openly about eyewitness events of craft, etc., on active service, and the UK armed services can't?
You can't.
Yeah. Well.
I tell you, talk about that Navy stuff that came out. I tell you what it is they're sitting there identifying top secret aircraft, okay, and their signatures and part of the radar systems. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about that, but are they mistaken? Yes, they're not. They don't have a need to know for whatever reason. And what the Navy has done since then, because these people like to talk to reporters and go public, is they initiated a new procedure for reporting unexplained area phenomena, and it's a way to contain the Navy personnel on not active duty, and also the Air Force adopting it too. So they have started control systems to stop that. These people are, obviously they don't know for sure about anything, because it was a classified system, and there's a couple things I do know about, a couple of them, that it's definitely top secret research prototype stuff, and they didn't have a need to know. That's what it is, and I think you'll find that in the future with these new directives coming out, that you won't hear active duty anybody in the United States talking about it. They definitely put a containment lid on it here with the publication of procedures. I think you're aware of that, aren't you, David, about the Navy implementing those reports?
Yeah. There seems to be a slow leak going on at the moment with a lot of stuff, but
once those procedures are put out, someone will have to go to jail if they talk about it. That's what it means.
Yeah. It's interesting times, I know. Okay, well, next question is from James Warrow. He says, "Hi David, question for Jim, if I may." Of course you can. Did you suffer from any illnesses, we've covered this as well, that was in any way similar to the health issues that John Burroughs describes? For example, heart problems, cataracts, or any other eye conditions?
No, I'm in excellent health.
There you go, James.
I'm the only one that was on the craft and examined it. So if I'm not affected, how can anybody else
That's
be?
true, yeah. If you that's exactly right.
Okay.
Right now, this is from your John Henson, a friend of yours. He says,
John, was he CID by chance?
He was CID, yeah.
He wasn't just a normal.
He wasn't a transport policeman. No, he was CID.
You know what? I knew that when the first time I met him in 2010. I said, "Whoa." He asks the right questions. So.
Yeah, he knows how to do it. Yeah. He says, ask Jim what he remembers about Bonnie Templin, please. He says he's tracked her down, but she refuses to enter into any communication. Oh, really? I think we should respect that, really.
The Bonnie Templin situation. Well, I described that in detail in the encounter or the Enigma book. You'll be surprised. It had nothing to do with any sighting. It has to do with Major Ziegler watching out for her career.
I see. Oh, right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, and that's just one of the most embellished part. That's a fragment of the embellishment with Rendlesham. And when you find out what really happened, you go, "Oh, I see why I see why they're trying to protect her career."
Right. So, what you're saying is there really wasn't a night 2 or an incident 2, but we need to see the book.
Well, there was a night involved, but it had nothing to do with the way it's been portrayed.
Right, I see. And also, he suggested about Gordon Williams passing away, and that we heard it on the grapevine. But you mentioned earlier that you'd heard about it anyway.
Yeah, it was on Thanksgiving last year, and it just, you know what? And I was in constant contact with General Williams, and I mean he is a very gracious guy. Was a very gracious guy. In fact, one of the things that bothered me so much is. I had a disinformation story, the agent's story, the NSA, to tell after I went to the OSI building, to tell the wing commander. I told him, I said, "I want to meet with the base commander, wing commander after this. What do I tell them?" "This is what you tell them, because it's an active investigation. This is what you tell them." And I said, "Okay." And so I actually went out and told him this cover story and part of it, and recently, I've had the opportunity with General Williams to say, "Geez, General, I want to apologize. At the time, this is what was going on, and this is what I told you wasn't true, and I was under orders. You know what?" And he's such a general. Yeah. He goes, "Jim," he says, "we all follow orders. Don't worry about it. I'm okay." And I went, "Oh, really?" I said, "Thank you." You know what? I said, I sat there and browbeated myself for 30-some years over that, and you're like, it's okay, we know. And he says, "I know things." He says, I'm under orders too. We knew things. So, and that's what we did. And it did create, I tell you what, when in the Enigma book, I talk about the cover story, how it starts, where it starts from, how it's implemented, how it's disseminated in the pubs, how it works, and all verified. All this is verified, and how they included then the third night into it.
Right. Yeah.
Because let's face it, the third night was, according to the witnesses, it was only lights in the sky or UAPs.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Nothing actually landed in Capel Green. In actual fact, the farmers' field is not called Capel Green anyway. It's the field opposite. But
yeah, that's right. That's correct, David. you are a good researcher on this.
No, it's only what I've been told, Jim. I do understand that farmers' field is actually called Capel St. Mary. Oh no, something. Capel St Andrews. No, Capel St Mary.
Yeah.
I think it's called. In actual fact.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the field opposite, just over the road, is actually Capel Green. So they've actually got that all wrong in the film as well. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. I've got the last question here. But you've already really covered it, but I don't know if you want to add any more to it. It says it's actually from Mick Sayer. In the 2010 book, UFOs, generals, pilots, and officials go on record. Leslie. Yeah, Leslie King's book, that's right, I couldn't think of a second name. Chapter 18, it says Jim tells of his experience with the UFO and how he took photos and took sketches, etc., of the symbols, but no mention of the binary code. But of course, you've already covered all that anyway.
Right, how it happened.
This was a major part of the Nick PAUK 2014 book. Why was it kept a secret? But you've already said, basically, because you were embarrassed about it. But
yeah, and tell Mick that in the book, The Rendlesham Enigma, I explain that in complete detail too. And your thoughts should be, I would think, after reading and go, oh, okay, that clears that up. And yeah, because the truth is the truth. That's just the way it works. But that's a good question from Nick. I know he's a real supporter of the Rendlesham incident, and he's very curious too. And over the years, so I appreciate the question.
He's one of the good guys. He's one of the ones that just wants the truth and nothing but the truth. So help us God. But
right, and you know what? And I tell you what, I'm no different than Mick or you or anybody. I'm a skeptic too. So but when it comes right down to the actual events, I mean, how can you be a skeptic of when you went through it? I mean, I'm always. I think I ask just as many questions as you guys do, but mine just happen to be a little bit more
educated.
Different. Yeah, they're just a little more different, but I ask a lot of questions too. I mean, the trouble with Rendlesham with me and an investigation that we've done, and it's been extensive, is the more questions we have answered, the more questions we have.
Yeah, the more that get raised. I understand that. Yeah.
It's terrible.
There was, I think I've got one more query or question, if you want to call it.
Sure.
Steve Longero came forward last year, a couple of years ago, saying what he saw in the weapon. Now there was a story also that he went out into the woods, but I don't think that could have happened, could it?
No, he was assigned to Delta's Delta restricted area. He was working that night, and no, he wasn't allowed to leave his post. I mean, that never happened. I mean, he was there, and but was he working? I mean, and we had 80 people observe the takeoff, so I don't know why he wouldn't have seen that. I'm not sure where you're going with that. I don't know what he said.
No, but I think there was a story that got into the paper that said that he was one of the prime witnesses that went out into the woods on that third night. But
on the third night,
from what I understand, he would have he couldn't have left his post.
He was on the third night. We were on break. He wasn't working.
Oh right, okay.
Okay. No, we were all on break. On the third night, that's a fact.
So he was actually working under you. So.
Oh yeah, he worked for me.
Well, the story is that he was out on the third night, so that couldn't have happened then.
No, it didn't happen.
Okay, right. Thanks for that.
Nothing against. Yeah, these guys. I know everybody that was working that night. I mean, especially the guys on my fire teams. I mean, I had 3 fire teams. I was a squad leader. We stayed together. Worked the Woodridge base. We'd work that like 3 days. Then we'd go back and work Bentwaters for like 3 days. And then we worked the weapons storage area at Bentwaters for 3 days. That's how we worked it. And yeah, I knew these guys really well. I mean, but no. The third night, we were on break. The first night, yes, he was working in, I believe it was Delta or Charlie. I have to look my notes, restricted area. I keep track of everything. So I did.
Apparently Barrows was out on the third night as well, was he, with Bustinza and Colonel Holt, when they were chasing the lights.
I can only go with Sergeant Neville says. Sergeant Neville says that the only people that were out there with his team was Colonel Hall, Lieutenant England, Master Sergeant Ball, and I think the one other, but he said he said he don't remember seeing Burroughs out there.
Oh, right. Okay.
He said, "Wow, he's 6'5". I mean,
you can't miss him."
He said, "I would have remembered that." But I don't know. I wasn't out there. I'll tell you what John did tell me. He did tell me the next when we're in the Monday morning on the way to base. He told me he went back out there, and I said, "Why in the F did you go out there again?" And he said, "I just had to go out." And so I know he was out at the staging area because he told me that. That's all he ever told me. He was at the staging area. I only found out about all this other stuff from reading in the last year or two. That's all news to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's interesting, anyway, Jim. Well, I mean, I think that's really. I think I've exhausted you, or you've exhausted me. Anyway, my mind's blown here.
Are you tired, David? Come on.
I've had a bad chest, Jim, this last couple of weeks, and it's getting near my dinner time anyway. but no, I do appreciate that you've come on this morning because I know it's early morning, or it's actually mid morning now, isn't it? There where you are.
Yeah.
But really, Jim, it's been fantastic talking to you, and we've got a 2-hour show from it. Normally my show's an hour, so but I can we're a bit more flexible now, so. But it's been brilliant. Now, are you planning to come over at all? Maybe next year to.
Yeah, I have some opportunities that they're asking me to go over. I'll tell you right now. This year I've dedicated only doing a few conferences here in the States. Like in 2 weeks, I'm going to be at the 50th MUFON Symposium in Irvine, California.
I know you've been very busy. I know you've been getting around a lot.
Well, the book was like crazy, doing that. But next year I am planning to do only overseas. I'm going to be talking to AJ when I go out to Irvine about doing South America. I might do the UK. I might do that next year because I sort of want to get back over. I tell you, I got friends over there, and I like to see them again and stuff. Yeah. So,
well, I'm one of them.
Yeah, you are, Dave. And I just don't want to have to go back out in the Rendlesham Forest. Okay, I don't mind Woodbreach or something like that.
Well, I think I've already offered. As I said, if you're coming over to this area, I mean, I'll certainly try and help arrange get something fixed up, like a conference for you, if you're interested in doing that.
Yeah, it'd be a nice opportunity. To see some old friends there. Where you were, you live pretty close to the place.
I did. I'm about 20 minutes away. Yeah.
Saxon?
Well, near Saxon, yeah, Colton actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, see, okay. It's and I think that's the nice part is I think I might come over next year.
Well, I hope you do, because
I tell you, I know one thing. If I go there, it's going to be the summer. I cannot deal with British weather.
Nor can I.
It's just too much for me.
Nor can I most of the time. It gets too cold. Well, mind you, we've not been too bad the last couple of winters. Really, it's not been too cold. But I do know what you mean. You probably it's all those guard duties. I think knocked it out of you, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. No, it's like bone chilling. Cold, and then that weird stuff like freezing frost or freezing fog or whatever it is. Or, oh my God.
That can't be fun walking around for a few hours on guard, just bored stiff. Yeah,
it makes for a long night. You know.
Anyway, Jim, look, I'm gonna let you go now because I'm so pleased you've given me a couple of hours speaking, but
I'm No, I'm very pleased too, and I want to thank you, David, for allowing me this privilege to be doing
it's my pleasure entirely, Jim. And as I say, on my site, I've got Paranormal Dimensions site on Facebook. I'll put as much sort of info about you and everything when the show goes out, and the book, and hopefully the book will be out soon, and I'll be able to give that a bit of a plug for you as well. And
yeah, it'll be on Amazon, so look for it in about the next couple of weeks. It'll be on Amazon, and like it's a lengthy book. It's 700 pages.
That is. Wow, yeah, that is. Yeah, but I'll be looking out for it, and as soon as it's available, I'll be plugging it out there. That's brilliant, Jim.
Okay.
All right, Jim. Thank you very much for coming on, and hope you keep well, and hope to see you next year then, if not before.
Yes, next year. All the best to you.
Thanks, Jim. Take care of yourself. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming on. Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone, for listening, and you've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye. Right, okay, don't run away. After recording this show with Jim, just a day or so after, I received his book in the post. The Rendlesham Enigma, and it's a massive book, around about 700 pages. I've started on it, and it's brilliant, and very interesting. Now, unfortunately, my next show was going to feature a man named Michael Stacey Smith, who also claims to be an RFI. Who's involved in the RFI, he claims. But there's been some questions asked about it. I think the fairest thing I can do, he was actually going to come on this show. He's been asked twice, and he promised to come on. I'm supposed to be doing a show with him now. But he's obviously backed out again after backing out the first time, and I told him I wouldn't give another chance for it. So I think the fairest thing I can do is I'll read out his little story. So here we go. To everyone who's never heard my story, I joined the Air Force in July 1979. After training, I was assigned to RAF Bentwaters, Woodbridge in Suffolk, England. I arrived in November 1979, was assigned to the Delta flight. In November 1980, our base went on alert. All SPs are called from the barracks. I was assigned to PP post, perimeter post, behind the East Gate on the Woodbridge Air Base. About 2 or 3 in the morning, I stood up in the bunker I was in to pee, LOL. I noticed about 150 to 200 yards down the fence line, or off base, a glow in the forest. It was moving in my direction. At first I thought it was someone with a lantern. When it got in front of me, it stopped. I could see it clearly. It was a reddish-orange glowing ball, a little bigger than a beach ball. I then called for backup. A SET team came to me. The object was still there. A black sergeant and a white AIC came. I didn't know them, and I think they were from day shift. The AIC jumped the fence, saying he was going to flank it to see what it was. I had an M60 machine gun with over 500 rounds of live ammo. We were not supposed to, but I locked and loaded my weapon. All I had to do was release to safety. I was prepared to fire. As the airman approached the object, the object left very quickly. I was also there the night Lieutenant Colonel Holt came out. I stayed on the base at the East Gate and had everyone's weapons in my truck. They posted a new guy on the gate that night. All of a sudden, he started yelling, "What the F is that?" An object flew over us coming from the Bentwaters direction. It made no noise and went into the Rendlesham Forest. It was a glowing bluish triangle shaped. That's what I saw. I don't care who believes me. It truly happened. I will carry it to my grave. More of my brothers who were there need to speak out. Okay, now you may have heard on my show with Jim Penniston, I actually questioned about the M60 being used. His answer was a direct no, if you remember. Okay, now I've got some questions. I was actually going to put these questions to Michael Stacey Smith on the show. And I said, basically, Jim Penniston says, read the M60 with 500 rounds ready to fire into UK territory because of a light scene. He must not know what the so far status of forces agreement is, Or rule number 1, identify targets that are hostile and not friendly. This is Jim Penniston saying. And Jim continues, never would they be put on during normal security or peacetime. We would have been in open hostility with enemy combatants. It's Spetsnaz or other foreign adversary. Jim continues again. M60 gunners are E4 and above, not a 1 or 2 striper. Remember, things were different when the F4s were there. They were all gone in 1979, and the A10's mission was primary. I know for a fact about the M60s. I wrote the security defence plans and security response options for the base and the security police squadron for 4 years. You can take that to the bank. Okay, he says, I also wrote the Bentwaters Woodbridge 207-1, the base security regulation. It told how we operate in normal security on a day-to-day basis. The security police response options, SRO, covered increased security or emergency operations. In 1982, they built the AFTF, Alert Fire Team Facility, in the WSA, which is the weapons storage area. And M60 was issued for that facility, but that was not 1980 or 81. No static PP post outside the WSA, weapons storage area, would have had an M60 on it. So there you go. That's Jim's response to the M60 questions that were quite prominent, I think, there's been quite an ongoing argument about the use of M60s. I actually made a personal inquiry at the Cold War Museum myself about the use of the M60, and I've got a look with raised eyebrows, which kind of answered my question. There you go. But I mean, as I say, I wasn't there, and the arguments will no doubt continue. But there you go. Michael Stacey Smith had his chance to come on the show and put his case over, but he's backed out twice now. So I'm going to tag this on the end of the Jim Penniston show, and I shall say goodbye to everybody, and thanks for listening again. Bye bye.
It's all getting very interesting, to say the least.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.